Nyles Burton with me of Andy's Factory, Uncle Dell's Mambo sauce. And we are just going to chat it up about just really their journey, their food journey, how they ended up creating this Mambo sauce and everything that kind of came along with their story. So we're just going to kind of take it away. Right now we're walking through Anacostia Park in Southeast DC. So you can see the view of the Anacostia, the park in the background, the highway, the bridges, just a few of the sights of the city. But so let's just kind of start, y'all. Just like, where were you born and raised?
So we've actually moved around a bit in our life. When we were born in DC, we stayed there for our first few years of our life. Then we moved to Pennsylvania, and then my memory kind of starts when we moved to Washington State.
Yeah.
Washington State's where my little sister was born. We stayed there for, I think, 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we moved down back to DC, and that's where we've been for like the last 12 years, because Blair's 12.
Well, technically, we stayed with our grandmother in Fort Lincoln, and then we moved to Upper Marlboro. That's where we've been for the last 10 years. So we've been back in the DMV for about 10 years. In our current home in Upper Marlboro.
And your dad was in the military, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why you all were floating around so much. So you don't remember too much, huh, Nyles, about Washington State?
Well, Washington State, I remember like general things, like feelings, a couple of like the friends that I had. Other than that, it was mostly just parts of the house we lived in, the school I went to for like a month, and I think one gym that we went to where we watched Shrek.
Oh, yes.
And that was
yes. Yeah, I remember just very stupid things about Washington State, just like random stuff. So I remember...
Because you were young.
Yeah, I was young. I remember stealing from the top dresser of my older sister's dresser. It was like this flavored water. I remember stealing that, spilling it, and then getting in trouble with her. And then I remember walking outside during one Christmas. It was just like snow everywhere, and then watching The Grinch in my mom's and my dad's room. That's all I remember. That's really all I remember from Washington State.
And then y'all moved back here, and that's kind of where really you spent most of your formative years, because now you're 20, right?
Yes.
Andy, you're 18?
18, yeah.
Okay, so y'all came back here.
When I was 7. No, when I was 5 and he was 7.
Okay. No, I had just turned 6. I remember.
Just turned 6. Okay.
Because on my 6th birthday, we were supposed to go to a thing. This is another thing I remember. It was like a Chuck E. Cheese, but I think they only have it in Washington State. And we had a moose on it. And Mom said, we're going to go there. And we never did. And I was betrayed. So.
So what was it like when okay, so you pretty much settled here for the rest of your formative years. What was that like? Like school? What was it like growing up around here? Did you have family here?
Yeah, we have a little bit more family here actually a lot more family here than Washington State. Okay. I think most of our family lives in like Alabama, but our father's family is around this area, and we still have some of our like close relatives back in Virginia, I know, and they're like 40, 50 minutes away. I know that like there's a bigger homeschooling community in this area than in Washington State.
Y'all were homeschooled, right?
Yeah, or at the very least, we took part in the homeschooling community way more than we did in Washington. So it appears like there's more homeschoolers here.
Right.
Yeah,
but
I think up there it was more secluded education. They were just kind of by themselves a little bit. But I think around here you really got into like more of a community type thing, especially with just gathered around like the culture around here.
And so what was homeschooling like? Did either of you actually enjoy it? Was it something you just dreaded and wish you were just going to a regular school? And how long did you homeschool?
Homeschooled all my life. I did 1 month of first grade, and then after that, it was homeschooling until graduation.
And what was that like? Because I know you had friends that weren't homeschooled. Did you wish you kind of lived their life, or were you cool with it?
I did, but there was a separation, I'd say. Like, I know the neighborhood kids and me did not get along as we got older.
Right.
And I think a lot of it had to do with them just not vibing with me because there was that difference, and they were closer to each other because they spent more time with each other. So I was kind of like the outsider, if that makes sense. My best friends that I have now were homeschooled, though. So that's really good.
And Andy, what about you? Did you enjoy it? Did you dread it? Or
I mean, obviously I dreaded school. I mean, I dreaded school in general a little
So it
bit.
didn't matter, home or in the actual
It didn't
room.
matter to me. It was all the same to me, but I don't wish that I was, anything other than homeschooled. It was really fun for me because, we were in that community type thing. I did go to Wise for my 9th grade year. That was fun, a little different, definitely a little different, but it was fun, and I'm glad I got the experience. But come 10th grade, when 10th grade came around, I was ready to come back because, I got the experience, I got to live it for a little bit, but I was ready to come back. Plus, we had the business and other different stuff, so it was definitely better for me to come out and just go back to homeschool.
And your brother and your sisters also?
They were, but Brooke is actually going to the high school he used to go to, actually. And she's now in school. She likes it there, I think. She's not very communicative and very sarcastic, so it's very hard to tell with her.
Well, I'll tell you this. She told me that 2 days ago that it was 2 dance battles that broke out in school, so I know that she likes it. Because that's just the craziest thing. I know that she really got a kid.
Growing up at home, what was that like? Because, not a small family, right? So what was dinner time like, hanging out with your brother and your sisters, mom cooking, dad cooking, what's going on?
So it was a little bit of mix of both of dad and mom cooking. Mom definitely did the most because my dad was working. But it was always the treat when my dad cooked because he cooked very special things. So his main dishes were spaghetti and meatballs, lasagna, jambalaya, stuff like that, fried shrimp. So whenever he cooked something like that, it was a real special occasion. And it was usually on a birthday, New Year's Eve, we would always have something special. Christmas, we would always have something special. Barbecues, we would always have something special. So mom was every day, but dad was those special occasions that kind of everybody in our family would come around because they were just nah, this is a special occasion. This doesn't happen all the time. We got to come down and get some food.
And what about was it a salmon sandwich?
Salmon sandwich.
Yeah. Your dad, the one you said grandma would wait until 11. Now, if grandma's waiting until 11 o'clock at night to eat, grandmas don't do that.
She would come to our house, wait until 11 o'clock at night, and then leave. But she lived in D.C. That's 30 minutes away. So she would this 60-year-old woman would wait until 11 o'clock, eat at 11 o'clock, leave at 11:30, get home at 12,
And then go to work in the morning.
and then go to work.
So she loved her salmon sandwiches.
She loved them. Yeah, everybody loved them. Yeah.
That's cool. And then, did you all ever cook? Was it ever even an interest? Did you hang out in the kitchen with your mom or your dad, or was it kind of one of those things where it really didn't even bother you? You just wanted the food on the table.
So we actually all cooked. I don't like cooking with other people in the kitchen because I feel like they get in my way.
Yeah, everybody in the family's like that.
It's just I just like to do it myself, and I don't like to entertain the others and tell them what to do, especially my little siblings, because they can't really do the things that I need them to do to help me.
Right.
They're kind of just okay, I guess you can chop the carrots, and then I have to go back over and chop the carrots to make sure they actually chop the carrots. But since we were little, our mother would give us a recipe. For me, it was burgers, spaghetti, and chili. Burgers, spaghetti, and chili that I would make. For our younger sister, I know that she made chili as well. I don't know what else she made. I think that was it. Just because she wasn't the type of person who would get a whole list of things. She was you'd make this, and she would do that, and you couldn't ask her to do anything else.
That's kind of the only thing that she still knows how to cook. She's 15, but she still basically only knows how to cook chili.
I think she knows how to cook other things. I think she doesn't want to.
That
Probably
might be it.
Yeah.
That might be it. Did you enjoy hanging out in the kitchen or no?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it. I know there's this one picture of me just with stuff all over my face when I was younger. I just always loved cooking. We all grew up cooking because our mom wanted to teach us, but it was something that I really liked. And so right now I'm looking at YouTube videos on the breakdown of cooking, not just how to follow a recipe, but basically how to make your own, why we're doing the thing that we're doing, because I like science too, and I think a lot of people realize, or a lot of chefs realize that you're kind of like a scientist when you're cooking.
Yeah, you need to understand.
You need to understand because you can follow a recipe, but if you don't know why you're putting the eggs into the cake, you ain't gonna be able to really experiment.
Right, and the whole purpose between all of those things and that reaction that takes place, right?
Yeah, you ain't gonna know anything thing about how to deviate from a recipe. You can't experiment, and that's what I like to do.
So when you were, I want to say 12, might be wrong. There was a math project popped up.
No, it was when I was 5.
Five.
Yeah. So when I was 5, a homeschool math problem project came up. So we all had to come up with like a business to start with. So I made cookies with my company called Andy Factory. B made cards. My younger sister, like greeting cards.
Okay.
My younger sister did something. And my older sister did something. I don't know. But I remember me and B's. So I did cookies, he did cards, and we would have to work together. So when I made deliveries, I would use his cards. So it was kind of like we were doing our own business, but we were also learning how to communicate with other businesses. So that was part of my math problem. It was like people had to order, they couldn't say 1 cookie or 2 cookies or anything. They had to be like, I want 2 plus 5 cookies. Or I want 7 plus 8 cookies. So I would have to do the math to figure out how many cookies that I needed. And then obviously they would say, I'll pay you 4 quarters, and I had to figure out how much money that was. So that was kind of part of the math problem, math project, and kind of the reason why we started that business at 5.
And eventually, some kind of way, that morphed into what we have now. Like 15 plus years later.
Yeah, so when I was obviously 5, I did that, but fast forward to when I was 12, I had to do it again. And I didn't want to sell cookies because I obviously associated that with a baby business because I did it when I was 5. So we took the recipe that we've always been making for Mambo sauce in our home that people love. We would make it at parties. People would have jars walking out of the party with jars of it because my mom would make extra because she knew that people would want it. And so I took that recipe that everybody loved and I made it my own. I added my own special ingredients. I measured the stuff because my mom never measured stuff. She just throw stuff in the pot. Yeah. It always tasted different, but it tasted good, but it really tasted different. But I measured it, made it my own, and I sold it at fairs for our second homeschool project, and it sold out within like an hour or 2.
So let's take a step back. Your mom was already making. When did she start making it? Was it when you were in the area?
Washington.
Yeah. So we were moving around, and she grew up in D.C. her whole life. So she fluctuated between Alabama and D.C., but she lived in D.C. and she would, the culture from D.C., all that. And she loved the Mambo sauce. She actually loved it so much she was allergic to tomatoes, and when she was younger, she actually almost died because she would just eat it too much. And that's just how much she loved it. So when we moved all the way to Washington State, this was before anybody was bottling Mambo sauce, so there was no possibility. Yeah, this was definitely like 2005-ish that she moved all the way to Washington State. Was never gonna find it. So she just, from memory and from like kind of knowing what was generally in it, she came up with the recipe, and she's been making it ever since, we moved to Washington.
So she just started drawing it up, like not doing it for business, but like passing out the family and friends.
Yeah, it was never a business for her. It was really like just parties. Anybody would come over, they would all be like, hey, got any extra Mambo sauce? She would give it to them. And they would be like, hey, you making onion rings? You got that Mambo sauce too? And it was just like that. It was never for business for her. But when I took over for a business, it was I just did it because I knew that people loved it. Because everybody just loved it. So I thought, hey, might as well get $7 from it.
So your mom was making Mambo sauce, passing out family and friends, and it was just the thing she did because she was like she missed that feeling, that taste. You started your second project. You started
Yeah, I decided to do the Mambo sauce because like everybody loved it. And I didn't want to do the cookies again because I feel like it was a baby thing because I did it when I was 5. So I just took the recipe that she was using. I took the ingredients because she never measured. So I took the ingredients that she used. I measured them out. I made it my own. I added my own special little thing to it to make it really my own. And then I bottled it. And then I went to fairs and I sold it there. My mom would like do her own little homeschool thing. So it wasn't just like me and B having our businesses there. She would encourage other homeschoolers to start their own business and sell it there. So one kid was selling like hot chocolate, other kids were selling like drawings and stuff like that. So, it was part of that community, part of the aspect of the homeschool. Not only was I learning business, but she was also helping the other kids learn
And
business.
she was really pushing it, like her initial reason was to strengthen math, like to really push those math skills.
Yeah, it was math. It was also just like talking to people. It was communicating. It was learning how to, do the cost of goods sold. I remember that because she drilled that into us. The cost of goods sold. I remember it, and just like the basics of kind of just like life. Because she was like, you may not own a business one day, but you should know how to like the basics of like owning a business, just in case you want to do that. You're not starting from scratch, from nowhere. You have some sort of idea of what it takes, and the communication that you need to have, the math skills that you need to have, the business sense that you need to have, the marketing. So we even had like a snow shoveling business, and we made flyers, and they weren't just like regular flyers. Part of the marketing that she taught us was like, it was funny flyers, so it would always be like memes or something like that, and it's like stupid stuff like that. So it wasn't like just generic and boring and stuff. So like she also taught us like marketing and stuff like that, and design and stuff like that. So it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just math. It was a whole accumulation of subjects and lessons.
And what happened to kind of start to propel this? Like, did you even really, because you were doing sauce, you were doing another project, but you just kind of sort of decided to kind of push this thing, but you really didn't want to. What was going on with all that? What was your hesitation? And who initially thought that, oh, you want to take this somewhere?
So my parents told me that I could bottle this sauce and get it in stores since I started. I never really wanted to do that because when I was younger, I had a really bad speech impediment, and it's gone now. It's a little bit there, but
we had to like get a surgery because it was actually a blockage in his nose.
Blockage in my nose. I couldn't talk when I was younger. Like up until like probably 2, I wasn't really talking. I was just like, it was like probably like a couple words that I would say, but 2, I wasn't really talking, and then that made my reading obviously come back a little bit. Yeah, my reading development, my speech, and then obviously my spelling. So I was late with the whole, it affected everything. So when I was 12, I wasn't necessarily at a 12-year-old level. So when they were like nervous talking to people, and my biggest dread when they were like, hey, you should start a business, I always told them, I said I would never start a business because I don't want to have to write emails. That was like really the key thing that I was not about to do. I was not about to write emails. So that was really why I never did it.
So Nyles, did you understand your brother when he was, like, when he would try to talk, or were you able to communicate with him?
So I was able to communicate with him because we spent like all of our time together. Like absolutely, we shared the same room until I think we were like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
So his speech impediment was never really something that got in the way of us talking.
Okay.
Like even when my mother was talking about a speech impediment, I kind of never noticed it, if that makes sense. It just kind of was the way he spoke, and I understood it. And there was something wrong with everyone else that they didn't, because it was like, he's speaking English, so like we below.
You were just around all the time, so you could just decipher it anyway.
It was just, he was speaking, I could understand, and it was just, that was all there was to it, I guess. I think there's only ever one time, a story that our mother tells where we didn't understand. We were in a mall, I believe, and he goes off on a line of stuff. They look at me, and what did my mother say? I shrugged and said, I have no idea.
Yeah. He was like, I have no idea. He said it like, he was like, no, don't even ask, don't even look in my direction. I don't know what this man just said. And that was the only time he ever couldn't understand me.
And we never figured out what he said. It ended there.
So when you decided, you knew you really didn't want to do the whole business thing, you didn't want to just run a business, whose idea was it in your family that this really might go somewhere?
So it was my parents, but it was my dad in the beginning when I was little. He would tell my mom, he was like, yeah, he needs to do this. And then the one time he was in, I think it was Giant, and he saw Capital City.
Wegmans.
Wegmans. He was in Wegmans, and he saw Capital City on the shelf. He texted a picture to my mom immediately, and was like, they got it, and he missed it, and I didn't care. But obviously they were like, a little.
You were young too. You were like 12 years old.
I didn't care. I was like, let him do it. I'll give him this. I'll let them have it. But No, they saw it, and people around me saw it too. Our family and friends, they saw it too, but I just couldn't see it.
Right. So what caused you to kind of move in that direction? Because there was something.
So the catalyst to why we decided to bottle it and incorporate and stuff like that was really it was when I was 16, and our father left our family when I was 15. So for about a year, it was okay-ish, dealing with stuff. But around the time that I was 16, he had kind of cut back on some of his responsibilities, and he was the only earner in the family. He was the breadwinner in the family, so my mom wasn't working for about 20 years because she was homeschooling and taking care of the family and taking care of the
I
house
think
and
it was
stuff.
more than 20 years at this point. It was almost
Yeah.
24.
I mean, it was 6 of y'all, so she was like,
Yeah, she had 6 kids, and so she never worked. So when that happened, I was 16. Our car broke down, and we asked him for help, and he didn't want to help us. And obviously, my mom couldn't do it, and she wasn't working. He eventually did do the bare minimum to get it running, but the guy, the dealership guy, he was really trying to get him to do it. But he did the bare minimum to get just on the road. It wasn't necessarily the safest thing, but he just got it on the road. And
It lasted until we got a new car. Which was, I think we were like thinking about getting a new car, and then like the day before we were going to go to the dealership, it like broke. Like it started smoking.
So essentially, you were about 15 or 16 years old, and the main reason why you decided to push this is because you felt that you wanted to offer that stability in your home that your dad didn't have, that your dad didn't offer because of that.
Yes. He offered that stability. Yeah, he offered that stability for 15 years, but then it stopped. And I didn't want my younger siblings, to have to go through that. I was okay with it. I was just dealing with it, but my main focus wasn't necessarily for stability for me, but really for them and for my mom. So
We're almost out the house, so like
I'm almost out the house. B's almost out the house, but Blair, Brooke, David, Mom, they still have to go through life and get
Where were they at the time? Were about
They were 5, 7, and 12. So they were
12?
Yeah, she was 12.
she was 12.
So I didn't want that for them. So me and B, we incorporated on August 16th, and we got our first shipment of bottles on October-ish.
No, it was November.
Yep, November 17th. We got our first shipment. And then he always does it every single time. He's like, no, it was actually this. No, it was actually that. I'm like, just let me tell my story.
That day, because our first pop-up shop was the 17th.
Oh,
We picked it up the day before.
this man with dates. November we got our bottles. December we sold at pop-up shop.
No,
Something like
November.
that. I don't know. You tell the story. You tell it.
We incorporated on August 16th. Just I think a week or two after my birthday. We up to. Then we started working on it, setting up, and then in November, just before Thanksgiving, we had our first pop-up shop on the 17th. That was a huge success, actually. We sold, I think, almost a quarter of our stock on that first day. And a lot of it was like friends and family coming out to support us, which, we expected because we invited them. And then, but as it started going on, more and more people started catching wind. We got on some news channels early on. I think it was
December 17th. No, December 16th. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, December for the culture with
Mike Wander.
Mike Wander. I remember dates because numbers. He can remember names. He's better people. And then once that happened, we got like a flood of our first photo orders, and it was like I think almost like 30 orders. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. We're doing numbers. And then the next time we went on to the news thing, we got like 200 orders. And it was, actually it might have been more, but it was a lot. It was in the hundreds. And it was like, wow, this is a lot. This is a good problem to have.
taking on its own energy. So once you all started to see this, even though it was just the beginning, you started to see the beginning of the success. How does that make you feel? I mean, your family dynamics have changed since all of this. If we take it back to the beginning, even from Washington State, coming back, your mom making almost all just because she missed the taste of the city, to you making it and tweaking it, to actually starting with the business from your dad's idea, to deciding to do it because your dad left and you wanted to really support your mom how does that feel to, when you're a kid, but at the time, that's a lot. So how did that make you all feel? To see something really turning and you all are essentially learning how to provide for your family.
It definitely was different because I was only 16 at the time, and I was talking to my friends about it, and they couldn't really understand it because I was talking about business stuff, and they were like, "Okay, let's go play basketball." But I mean, it's different being a kid and understanding all this stuff and getting into adult situations and really having more in common with adults than I have with like typical high schoolers. In terms of what I understand and what I'm talking about and what I'm doing in life right now. So it is a bit of a different thing than I was expecting out of my teenage years, but ultimately I am glad that I was able to do it.
And then like the relationship with your dad, like has it moved in a positive direction at all? Is it kind of still one of those things where you just kind of it is what it is for right now? Is that where you all are?
It is what it is for right now. With like my personality, I don't get angry at people. I just kind of stop talking to them entirely because I don't care anymore. If that makes sense. So like with him, I know he's angry. He's an angry person, not like in a spiteful way, but until he's frustrated, he's angry. But for me, I guess I feel those things, but it's less. I can't hold a grudge, but I don't want to talk to him, and I'm not going to open the door. And I don't even know if I will let the door open if he wants it to open, because I just don't care.
Yeah, no, it's going to be difficult for me. People like to say that, you give it some time. I'm pretty understanding of the situation. I know all the ins and outs. I don't think that people know that we know all that we know, if that makes sense. I think that he definitely thinks that we don't pay attention because we're kids or something like that, or we don't understand the full gravity of the things that he did and what he has done and what he will continue to do and said and stuff. So I think that he thinks we will eventually come around, and people say that, you might eventually come around, but I don't personally think we will. The last time I talked to him like in a friendly setting was when he was still here, so before September 4th, 2018. Was the last time we talked friendly and honestly son to father. I picked my little siblings up because they do have to go over there. He didn't necessarily fight for me. The older three, he did, tell the court that he wanted to.
At that time, he couldn't have fought for me. I was an adult.
Oh, yeah, you were an adult, but he didn't fight.
In all fairness, it was my choice that
point. But he didn't fight for me and my 14-year-old sister at the time. But he did ask the court to give him 2 weeks, 2-week visitation for the young kids. So I picked him up every 2 weeks. I dropped him off every 2 weeks for 2 days. So that's really the only contact that I have with him. And it's been a little difficult. We had our arguments. We had an opportunity with a really major thing. Shark Tank contacted us, but he kind of was. He didn't help us out because he didn't like what I said in the story and in the interview, because I said that he left and he didn't want to sign the paper. So I think that was ultimately why we weren't able to go on. So I definitely have some resentment towards him for that, if not the other stuff.
It's definitely a place to be in, but you keep doing what you're doing, right? You know what you all are doing. So it's make the best of what the cards that we've dealt a lot of times.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you all were able to kind of realize pick that up at a young age, or some people are not able to do that.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's unfortunate that happened, but it's really dope.
Thank you.
We're here in the city, we're creating something that, people say it's from Chicago. That might be kind of true that it came from Mambo Sauce came from Chicago, but we definitely...
The name did.
I'll give it that, but no, not the sauce.
Right, changed it, did our own thing, so it's certainly a DC born and bred thing, that's for sure. So the name, y'all have created the sauce, Uncle Dell's Mambo Sauce. Tell me about the name. Who's
So-
Uncle Dell?
So the name Uncle Dell's really comes from two different parts. So when I first started bottling it when I was 12, I used the name Uncle Andy's Mambo Sauce because I was like the fun uncle to everybody. I like every kid just really loves me, and it's like still to this day, just like I just have a way of like if a kid is like having a tantrum, I just have a way of just calming them down. I think it just got so goofy, I just understand them. But I was called Uncle Andy for a while, and then so that's what I used for the name. But when we went to go incorporate and use that as the name for the sauce, it was actually trademarked with another sauce company. They made a completely different
pretzel company, but they had a sauce, so
called
close enough.
Uncle Andy's Mambo Sauce, so we couldn't use it because
It's pretzel sauce.
pretzel sauce. So we couldn't use it, and so when we went to go brainstorm on different ideas, we chose Uncle Dell's, which the Dell part refers to our late maternal grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel Wardell Guyton. And he helped me out with the original Andy Factory, actually. He's the one who got me to pay B. I made about $80, and for 2 weeks I didn't pay him.
So
And
he helped you with the when you were 5.
when I was
the first
5,
iteration.
yeah,
Okay.
he helped me out. He was there with the selling stuff, but really he helped me pay B because I was so hell bent on not paying B because I wanted to keep that $80 to myself. It was a whole bunch of money, and I felt like I did all the work. And my mom and my dad and my sibling, my older siblings, everybody was trying to pay him, but I would not budge.
You're not catching people out.
I think it was only like $20 too.
It was only like 20 bucks. It was so little, but the influence that my grandfather had, he just called my mom and said, "Did Andy pay him yet?" She said no. So put Andy on the phone. He said a couple words. He was like, "Andy, you gotta make payroll." And I said, "Okay, Poppy." And
You
that
can't do
was
the story
it.
justice because Mom's the only one who can do his voice.
Yeah.
He didn't just say like you gotta make payroll.
Yeah.
He said it in like poppy.
So he's from the country. He's from the country, so he said it real country. That's the only way that I can really say. It was just so country in the way that he spoke, and I guess maybe that's what I liked or something like that. But he just had a little bit of influence on us and impact on our lives. So really, we needed to honor him. Really. Uncle Dell's Mambo Sauce.
So what now? So I mean, I know y'all are in stores in DC. I know y'all are in
Foxtrot.
So where else and what are you looking to do?
So we're in about 19 or 20 stores right now. You know, they're smaller stores, but that's really the path that we're on at this moment in time. Just continue to get into smaller stores, continue to get into restaurants, then build our way up to those major retail stores like Target and Safeway and Giant and stuff. We are talking with a major retailer right now, but it's not set in stone, so you don't necessarily want to.
It's very loose right now.
Very loose right now, but we're very hopeful that we can get in there, and I think that we have a good chance and good opportunity. But we're continue getting in stores, continue getting Uncle Dell's Mambo Sauce in stores, but we're also going to come out with new products because we're a cooking family. We have a whole bunch of recipes that all of our friends and family love, and why can't we share it with the world? So we got rub, we got simple syrups for like cocktails and milkshakes and just a sweetener for drinks and stuff. We got a barbecue sauce that maybe we might come out with, and then our next thing, our biggest thing I think, is our clucking sauce, which is like a mayonnaise type sauce for a chicken. Oh, it's so good.
The name Pluckett is just tripping me out right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't like mayonnaise, but I had to taste it because I had to taste my product, and I had to say I actually like this. So it can make a mayonnaise hater like me actually like it. So it's a really good sauce, and I cannot wait to get it on the market.
Most of them sauces just go on everything.
It's good on everything.
So we're really excited to push forward with more things.
Yeah.
So and then how many flavors do you have? Like the main flavors?
Right now we have 3. So it's a regular, spicy, and cocktail.
Yeah, the cocktail's so good.
And so what would you suggest for the cocktail?
Fish. It's fish food, seafood. Things like shrimp, fried fish. Those are the things we use on it the most.
Crab cakes. That's my thing. If you're going to try the cocktail sauce, put on some crab.
Crab cakes. All right. Okay. You ready here first? Okay, cool. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure hanging around in the city. We hit Anacostia Hill, we hit Lincoln Park on the hill, and now we're kind of wrapping everything up right by the monument, right in DC. It's a DC thing, just like Uncle Dell's Mambo Sauce, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thanks so much, y'all.
Thank you.
was like her favorite grandchild. So anything he wanted when he went down there, she would be to take him and get him. So she made him some tomatoes. I was like, here, try this. I was probably like, Okra has like that slimy texture to it. And she put it over, they put it over rice, fried rice. And I'm like, ugh, what is this? But that was like my first time ever tasting it. It was like, I don't think I like that, that's not for me. But when I got older, I tasted it again. I think the next time I tasted it was in gumbo. Which is pretty funny because I feel like everyone kind of has that reaction to Okra. Like you really love it or you like.
Especially as a kid, right?
Yeah. And as a kid, you're already like vegetables are kind of like anything, but
Unless you were just really brought up with it.
right. And I was just thinking, like I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Bronx, so that whole thing was just very new and foreign to me. But I love South Carolina, like as a kid and being from New York and just being surrounded by concrete and getting to go down there and just run wild, get filthy. It was like my favorite thing to do was to go down south and visit my dad's family and visit my mom's family too.
Because both of them are
Yeah, so my dad was born down there. My mom was born in and moved up to New York after she had set them up for school and stuff. So they lived up here for a while and they moved back and they moved back up to New York. So they were kind of
We've been coming here since like they opened. We came as soon as like you could be comfortable outside.
Okay.
It was like we were sitting outside. It was kind of chilly. Hold on.
But I know that they were just open and they weren't doing indoor dining, only for
Yeah, you have a liquor license, yeah.
So we sat outside. Kevin is just great. Like every time he comes here, he's so He's one of those stores that's just wants to make sure you're
Southern
good,
hospitality.
comfortable.
We did the same thing. City surrounded by continents, so going out to South Carolina was just amazing. The few times that I went down there, it was around elevator shoes and like it was the other world. And I remember my auntie gave me Okra one day. It was like that. I can outlast you. You tell me I'm gonna get up so I can outlast you. It's game on, right?
Right.
Can't nobody outlast me. Hold on to, like that was the first time that I ever, in the city, just getting used to it. Just having to grow to appreciate something. So it means so much, just from our past,
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't until I was older that I even understood, coming from West Africa, and just our relationship to the land.
Like none of us don't live in Louisiana know how to do it.
So you don't know how to get. So many times you go.
Yeah, I've only been like 4 or 5, like more like the later years of my adulthood, I think. I've been going, but yeah, you know, like there's about 5 of us in my family, my dad's side, and none of us know how to do a real like traditional boil, how they would do it there. And then I think about my dad's brothers and their children, and my first cousins, so maybe 1 or 2 of us know, or like closer to like Texas or something like that, but none of us in like Cali or New York. Yeah, near my grandma's house. It's like where my dad was like first raised, you know, like it's like a 15 by 10 house, you know, like 4 kids living there. Parents just like grand is like really stepping into, you know, back in the 1930s, 40s, kind of shack really. Very country living. So it's cool to like kind of step into that for a little while. And I can't wait to bring Bradley this year to kind of like be out there and land. And yeah, we're definitely going to.
Year we were going to take her, her first experience.
The infamous, tell me about the salsa.
Yeah, Buddhist.
You gotta tell me about this because y'all might have to bring me about 20 pounds.
Oh man, last time
drop it off and get it back.
Last time we went, I felt a little embarrassed because we had literally, you know, those hot cold bags you buy at the grocery store. We bought 2 of those, and they were about 10 pounds each in each hand. And we got in there, and they're like, "All right, you gotta lay them all out on the individually. You gotta lay them all out to go through the conveyor. Go through the, you know, when they check your bag, security and stuff. And they're like, "Don't worry, we see this all the time."
Yeah, they were like, oh, y'all got the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you gotta do.
Yeah, but it's worth it. We ate on it for like a year, I think. And then we'll pull something out, pull out a fried Buddha ball or pamphlet with regular Buddha.
Like is it add like some sort of flour to it or
Yeah, it's like a chicken wing with, you know, like crispy outside and all that, soft inside.
pretty much like crab meat side?
Is it like rice and beef?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. That's what the Buddha is. But
In and of itself, it's not just a meat by itself. It's all see, educate me.
sausage, yeah. It's banging. You get the right place to do it, you're just like, oh wow. And it's only in that area of Louis. It's not even the New Orleans thing.
Right.
It's like that area, Raleigh, Iowa area.
Now, this area is that south or to the west? Like southwestern Louisiana you're talking about?
It's right next to Lake Charles. About an hour from Lake Charles, further east. Lake Charles, about an hour east of Lake Charles. 3 hours northwest of New Orleans.
Alright, so it's not far because you mentioned Houston too.
Yeah, we would fly into Houston.
You have all of this food history, and your mom was an entrepreneur, right? Didn't your mom have a restaurant?
Yeah, my mom had a catering business. She had like an event space. Yeah, my dad had a restaurant as well in California, barbecue.
Okay. And what was that like? Tell me about that side.
It was great. Like I only went a few times during the summer, you know, because growing up in New York, the mom remarried. So yeah, I got to go visit, and it was just like an eye opener just to see like this is yours. You know what I mean? I'm in the back, like going through refrigerators and opening stuff up, asking a ton of questions about running a business. Thinking of ideas like how he could like do something better even at that young age, 13 or 15 or something like that. Just like trying to just learn, take it all in every summer, you know. But he lost it I always knew it would be technology. I've always been hacking away at stuff or learning code as even a kid. Even like it started out as like Legos when they started getting advanced robotics in Legos and adding sensors and like motors and stuff like that to Lego kits. You know, and then you can like program it so like when it touches the wall, am I gonna go left or right? Like that. So I was very like into that kind of thing growing up. But I was never around people that looked like me.
And then, I guess like with just thought, like where do you think that EatOkra seeds like with energy behind it? When did it kind of creep in?
That was really the catalyst that kind of started everything. I didn't know anything about Brooklyn. Being from the Bronx, born and raised in the Bronx. I lived in Queens. I lived in Harlem for a little while I was in school. But I never ventured off into the hood for any reason. When you're from uptown, like people speak about Brooklyn as like this like spooky, scary place that you don't go to, especially if you're not from around, from here. So I never ventured out here originally. But then I moved out here. I saved up enough money, finally bought my own place. And Anthony and I were just dating at the time, so he lived in Queens actually, but he helped me move here. So, I was in my empty apartment, trying to figure out Brooklyn, get to know the area, get to know my neighborhood that I was living in. And we were looking for places to eat, naturally, because one thing, I moved here and I couldn't have any appliances. Everything that I ordered was on back order. So, so they were like, you can wait another month and then move it later. I'm like, no, I want to move it now because I was living with my mom at the time. I was just over it. Like, I love you, mom, but you gotta go. So I moved in with no furniture, no appliances. Naturally, we just wanted to find food all the time. So we were just like, let's look for black-owned restaurants. And that's how it kind of started. We started like going online, searching for businesses.
Because y'all just wanted to find places that you could establishments around for free, just for yourselves. It's tough finding them.
Yeah, I mean, it was, there were, these lists and blog postings. And no shade to bloggers at all because I feel like, bloggers do, the necessary work and great work of like being in the community and like just highlighting these businesses more than any larger publication or anything like that. But one thing that we were finding was a lot of stuff was like outdated or some of the businesses that were listed on a lot of the platforms that we were coming across like closed, or the hours of operation were different, just little things like that. And at the time, Anthony was like, he was in a weird place in his career where he's like wanting to move up. And to do that, you need to have certain level of skills. So he was like, I need to like build something so that, when I go after that next job or the next position, I can say, look what I do. This is my work. This is what I work for. Pay me this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no better proof than to have your own product out there. That people are using, people are downloading. And EatOkra was really just it's a passion project. There was no business plan. There was no vision. I mean, it was a vision, like what we wanted it to be, but it's not like the traditional. Let me think about a problem, solve it, put a business plan around it, monetize it, all before you have a product out in the real world.
Yeah, so I think our story is very traditional in a sense because set out to like create a business. It was something that we were doing ourselves, one because of the need that we had, right? But also, practical needs that we had, and also just our desire to support local businesses and to support our community. So that's really kind of how it started, and then it just ballooned into something that I think, well, not even I think, that I know we weren't necessarily like prepared for.
But before it even ballooned, because you all did have some vision of this, just because of the name. There was a reason you picked the name too, right?
Yeah. So the name definitely, when we finally sat down and we were like, okay, originally we wanted it to be, a directory that featured all Black people. And then we kind of was like, I think it would be best for us to kind of focus on food because of the experience that we were having with trying to find food, and just also thinking from the practical standpoint that food is something that everyone needs, like everyone needs to eat at some point. And then also the role that food had played in our lives, just our connection to our families and just that feeling of fellowship and what, it makes us feel. And we felt like other people would connect with that as well. So, we started thinking about, okay, now we need like a name and a logo that listens to all of these things. We wanted to name it Okra, but that was taken. So we were like, okay, let's name it EatOkra. And yeah, it's stuck. As okra kind of is sticky and kind of brings things together.
We like to play on that because it's like, okra is like binding, right? It's a binding agent. It's a thickening agent. In a traditional Southern cuisine, it's a nod to our heritage. Brought over during the slave trade. So our families are from the South, so it's just like it makes perfect sense. People have a reaction to like what you said earlier.
Well, I'm curious, like what you kind of started watching this, the reaction that you all received, how has it been?
It was a mixed reaction. I think some people were like, "Oh, this is awesome," and then there were other people that were like, "Why okra?" And there, some people were like, "I don't get it," or "What's the point?" It's like, support Black businesses, like that's the point.
Yeah, like that's a very different discussion from a year ago, prior to now. Up to a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Like when we introduced the app, people didn't get it, didn't understand it. Some didn't want to be labeled as Black owned. Now it's like, I get it, yeah, Black owned.
It's kind of like a fine line, and I have heard people say this sometimes. And you're right, they don't want to be labeled classified as Black owned. They just want to be what they are, and allow people to accept them for what they are. And then you have folks on the other side that are like, let's kind of label ourselves so people really knows. I don't know. I suppose it works. I don't know. It feels tricky. It feels so tricky with us too. It feels tricky. Amongst ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I feel like there are so many businesses before, whether or not they're amazing businesses in terms of what they produce, in terms of like the quality, just even the concepts are so creative, closest to you. So, that's the thing that people connect with, and that's why these businesses are so important. And before, like, we're not culinarians, we're not historians, we're learning as we go this lives, but we understand the importance of Black spaces and what they provide, in terms of just being able to see yourself and feel comfortable and feel accepted. To us, that's worth preserving, that's something that I think belongs on our value and make sure that these businesses
And so as far as when you focus on, I guess, certain, but EatOkra is tapestry and utilize all across the country, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yes, we can use it all across the country. Right now, we're limited in our scope to the United States. Just until we're ready to expand into other countries. So we're getting other things in place so that, we can just jump here, have everything working, jump to the next city, country.
You just have teams that are just strategically throughout this West Coast, maybe.
I mean, I think that's the goal. That's the goal. We definitely want like a East Coast team, West Coast team, and then like a Canadian team, or South Africa, UK team. We want
Regional team.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's how people tend to that's how people use the app a lot too, is when they travel. When you go to a city that's familiar, 9 times out of 10, you want to be around people that you feel comfortable being around. You want to be people that is familiar to you, so people tend to use the app for that as well. That's what we're seeing.
I know everything that I've been hearing about is how to split their independence. I just think it's really cool. And it's a dope thing for all of them. Because it's all these things like, matter of fact, when we were at St. Rock, Georgia, we were talking about the number of restaurants just in Georgia. And out of about 400 different restaurants. And trying to work with that and trying to push that and push those numbers. It seems like we can change that, And EatOkra is something that once people decide that they want to restaurant, even if it's a small establishment, it's huge. And then realize your platform to make other folks knowledgeable about their place. They're coming into the city or whatever. That's a good thing. It's just our underdevelopment. It's changing a little bit. Sometimes I feel like it's moving so slow.
So slow. Because then it's like, as one opens up, another's closing, right? Another's closing, right? But yeah, that's what we hope with EatOkra. Like, we're providing that kind of like level of knowledge, I guess, so to speak, to people that are specifically looking to support Black-owned businesses, people that are just looking for different tastes, different restaurant, or just something different. And a lot of people that don't look like us have said, like, I just don't know where they're at. Where are the Black-owned restaurants? I do want to support, but I don't know where they're at.
And then another issue that I have found just like to myself with folks is that sometimes people will start kind of off these lists, but they don't stay up to date. Or you might find some list that was started a year or so ago, and it's completely out of date online because there are so many so many pushes to get people to patronize my businesses. So you find these different lists that are started or people forget about it, drop it. So it's refreshing to have something that is unique that we can really use, something that's constantly updated, something that you're paying attention to what's opening, what's closing, where things are. The restaurant closes this location, but hey, they're right around the corner because they needed more space.
Right. Yeah, I think we really pay attention to that as our core. Data is our core of our business. So we pay a lot of money to keep it, try to keep it as up to date quarterly. Try to call every restaurant again and just make sure they're still open. Those that aren't signed up on the platform, we call. And we make that bring that to the forefront. We have a whole special team that only deals with the data and making sure that it's accurate.
So now
that it has become what it is, and you see this formation of how it's just beginning to take root, and you see like, what are you? What?
I used to be on the I used to like being on the train because it let me just like settle.
Because a lot of times you're learning on the fly. It might be a great look if you open up a restaurant, but that doesn't mean you don't have it, run it.
You can get stuff out within
Right.
8 minutes or 12 minutes or
Exactly. So there's a learning curve, and I think we all have to learn that. There's a learning curve for patrons who want to support Black-owned businesses, and I think there's there is a learning curve for the businesses themselves. For some of them, it's just a matter of like retraining ourselves. You go to make, you go to a fast food restaurant, your food come out, we're used to that,
Oh, I'm not used to it. The food comes out late. Forever you get your order, but you still go back.
Right.
Sometimes you can I ain't going to, so that kind of thing, that kind of belief or mindset, I get it.
And that starts with the individual. Where we're talking about systemic changes and things like that. There are individual changes that take place.
Yep.
Everything I eat is good.
How do you like that?
Which one is that? Is that the honey? Because you can say we're
Honey
getting that
garlic.
because we didn't get
You got the buffalo.
right. This is like chill spot.
And the band's rolling in right now. It's crazy because every time we come here, we see more and more people outside or at the thing. Because when we came, it was just like only we knew about it. Nick and I knew about it. Well, it felt that way, right? And then
Like this, you're almost
slowly,
secret.
right? Like slowly, it's like